Okay, everyone. It is, what is today? August 19th, 2020. I have to tell you, it feels like yesterday it was my birthday, which was August 1st. Welcome to Unfound Live. We do this, of course, every Wednesday night for as far back as I can remember. And it's good to be here. Um, Kind of an overcast day is what I would call it in the Tampa area. I did get out to play a little disc golf earlier today. Didn't know if I would have time to do that, but I got it done. Went over, and I'll be talking about disc golf here in a little bit, but that's what I did today. Worked just about completed Friday's episode. I had a very good conversation with Cherie. Hello, Cherie. About an hour ago about this upcoming project, this idea that she came up with that we're going to be doing here at Unfound. So we had about a half-hour conversation about that. So it was good to talk to her. So we got some things done today. Hello, Laura and Christine. Look at you with the little smiley face, Christine. Concha, Susan, Valerie, Tamara. I'm doing good, Tamara. I see your last name. I'm not going to say it out loud, Tamara, but I went to college with a guy with that exact same last name, Tamara. Hello, Cherie, Jasmine, Emily. Hope everybody is doing well. While you're starting to watch tonight, maybe you could just go do this right now and give this video a nice like. Give it the thumbs up. However, you can do that on whatever device you are using. So I'd appreciate you do that if you have the ability to do that. And so thank you for that. Anne, hello, touching. Of course, as always, I think I have a good show lined up for tonight. Gotten a few questions, not a lot of questions today, but a few. And if any of you would like to chime in, maybe you want to use that super chat button, the little circle with the $sign in it, to make sure that your question gets seen. Maybe you can also contribute to Unfound at the same time as you're asking your question. If you have any questions, I got 3 of them on the list, but you know that I will try to answer as many questions as I can during the course of one of these live shows. So if you have any burning questions that you think you'd like to ask me this evening, go ahead and do that. Hello, Kathy. How are you? Hope you're doing well. This past weekend, for me, I took part in a disc golf tournament. And after the first round, there were 2 rounds, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. After the first round, I was tied for second place. Yes, really. And then Sunday happened. And I didn't play so well. And I don't know where I ended up finishing. I was somewhat disappointed with my performance on Sunday. It was just a little off. It wasn't nerves or anything, just was not as accurate as I needed to be. And I was just nicking trees and all sorts of crazy things were going on. Had some beautiful shots and had some very ugly shots. And I certainly fell down in the standings. Like I said, because I was all ticked off about it, I haven't even looked to see where I finished total. But I was in second place after the first day. I'll put it together one of these days. At least I don't have any nerves or anything going off on out there. I just need to work on more consistent technique. But it was good to be out there. Good to see everybody. And I will be doing that again this weekend on the same course, but playing in a different division, in a much more difficult division. In fact, if I finish in the top half of this division, I'll probably be pretty happy. But we're going to go give it another shot this weekend on the same exact course. I hope it's nice out. It was really nice out this past weekend. It was really beautiful time to play some disc golf. And then after this coming weekend, there'll be 1 weekend off And then it'll be Labor Day weekend, and I'll be playing in a tournament up in Floral City, like an hour and a half north of here. But I was out there with the new Unfound hat on and everything. I was looking good. I will say, I think I'm one of the best dressed players out there. But because I'm all color coordinated, and I have a nice disc golf bag, the hat, the shirts, everything. So I think I look pretty good while I'm out there. I just wish that I played as good as I dressed. If I played as well as I dressed, I think that would be pretty good. Other things that are going on. Last night, this storm rolled through here. I'm serious. I've never heard thunder this loud since I've lived where I do now. I mean, it was crazy. You know, you're used maybe to getting one or two lightning strikes that are close, that are really like, oh my gosh, there must have been 5 or 6 or 7 that felt like they hit the building. That's how loud that they were. And that must have been last night, maybe at like, I don't know, 1 or 2, 2 in the morning or something like that. But that was a little crazy. In fact, I posted about that this morning. And then also things going on in, I guess, the personal life is that in this building that I live in, we actually have 2 elevators, and they're like right out that direction and to the left of where the elevators are. And there are 2 of them. Well, the one has been worked on since it's actually been out of service since January, if you can believe it. And so there's only been one working elevator in this building, and even that one is broken down a couple times. And so there will be days when neither elevator works in a 20-floor building. And I live on the 8th floor. Well, they've been working on that, refurbishing the one that's on the far side, and they finally got it fixed. And so yesterday was the first day for the other elevator to work, and now they're starting work on the one that everybody's been using since January. And I suppose that'll take the rest of the year. So it was really weird. You know, you get used to something going in the same elevator for like 8 months in a row, and then one day you push the button and the other elevator door opens. It was weird. And I actually videoed it and put it up. And this new elevator, it talks to you. It'll tell you what floor it is. It's much more advanced than the old one. So it's kind of cool. But so we got one elevator completely fixed now with new buttons. And like I said, it talks to you and it tells you what floor. Like when you go out there now, it'll tell you what floor the elevator is actually on. The old system didn't do that. So, but now we're using one elevator, but it's a new elevator, and the old one will now get fixed. The one that's closest to this side. Hello, Pamela. Hello, Twinkle. Sheree says, same situation at work. One of the 2 elevators has been out since March. Wow, Sheree. Not too bad when you were going into work, but terrible when you're trying to leave work. Yeah, people get to work at different times, but everybody leaves at the same time. So I feel you, Sheree. And it's been especially difficult here because you have one elevator, you have 20 floors. Now, granted, a lot of these units, nobody's living in them. But with the COVID restrictions, you're only allowed to have 2 people in an elevator at one time. That's what they want us to do. So sometimes I've pressed the button, waited a minute or so for the elevator, and then when it opens, there's already people in there. And so I'll just end up taking the steps. So I'm luckily I just live on the 8th floor, not the 20th. Touching says, that reminds me of the Big Bang Theory, right? With their elevator that doesn't work. I've really never watched that show, Touching, but yes, that I do know what you're talking about. Twinkle, I hadn't thought about COVID and elevators. Oh yeah. Yeah, they in our building here, they have rules about that. And I've actually had a situation where I'll hit the button. The elevator will stop. The door will open. There'll be a couple people in there. And they won't even allow me to even make one step toward, no, you can't come in here. Can't come in here. And if that happens, I don't even wait for the elevator to come back. I'll just take the stairs. I'm just the heck with it. So, but that's been going on. But the new one is now up and running. And like I said, it talks to you. When you get to your floor, it'll go 8th floor in a female voice. It's pretty cool. So there you go. Those are some things that are going on with me. Disc golf tournament this past weekend, and then this weekend, some crazy thunder and a new elevator in this building. So it's been a long time coming. What else? Let's move on to this. Some of the items for tonight's show. Thank you, Tamara. I did that voice so well. 8th floor. The Vanessa Orren poll. Of course, we do this poll. We do a poll every week. And just to get everybody's ideas, opinions out there as to what they think happened. And an overwhelming amount of people think that Pete is the primary person involved in Vanessa Orren's disappearance. I think that makes a lot of sense. I can't argue with that. I'm inclined to agree with that. But you should know that in the think tank, there were more people than I would have thought that thought Vanessa could have just really gone off on her own. That she could have gotten in a vehicle with some guys and just took off. That was one of I guess, the way Tinker explained her sister to everybody. That's what at least some people took away from that she was just bound to do anything at any time. And it very well may be, as I stated in the summation, that maybe Pete didn't do anything, didn't want to file a police report or anything because he didn't want her back. So I was a little surprised by some people thinking that, she could have just voluntarily walked off on her own. But that's their opinions. That's what they took away from the episode. In fact, now that I'm talking about this, I did get to talk to Jolene Oni, who was the guest for Joe Bain's disappearance from 2 weeks ago. And like I told her, that it was kind of the same thing, that more people than I would have thought kind of do have the idea that Joe did just walk off on his own. And it wasn't Coley or Angelia or Coley's mother that had anything to do with his disappearance at all. There were a few people who think, yeah, you know what? I can see it. So it's kind of the same situation. And these people are entitled to their opinions. I guess, like I said, it was more people than I would have thought. But that's why we cover these cases the way we do. We are not here to give anybody a hard time about their opinions. If we knew what happened, we could just go solve them right now. So more than I would have thought. Let's see. Tamara said, okay, Twinkle, if you get lonely, just ride the elevator. Yeah, Twinkle, I am not a person who gets lonely at all. It's very easy for me to just be in this condo for days at a time, never being in the company of another human, and never even think about it. It's not that I don't have a fear of public places or anything else. I went over to the disc golf course, ran into a couple people I knew today. Last weekend, saw a bunch of people and everything. But if I were to go to jail, solitary confinement would not be much of a penalty to me. Twinkle says, I know I'm a hermit too. I haven't been out for 3 days. Yep. Okay. Let's move on to, so that was the Vanessa Orren poll. That overwhelming amount of people think that Pete had something to do with it. Her disappearance. Of course, in the think tank, we did talk about Robert, and I, of course, wrote about the entire topic for the Patreon blog. And speaking of Patreon, if you would like to become a Patreon member, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/I Unfound Podcast and sign up for as little as $2 a month. Or maybe if you want to step it up a little bit, you can get up to the $12 or $20 a month level. And you can be a part of the think tank that, of course, I always mention. I just mentioned it here. You can get a bunch of books. You become eligible for the Unfound on the Ground segments that we've been doing, 4 of them now. And you could be admitted to the very, very, very private Unfound Think Tank group on Facebook. And once again, though, you'd have to be a contributor at $12 a month or higher. But we will, if you just wanted $2 a month, that's fine too. You get access to all the blogs that I've written over the past 3 years. And then you also have access to some books. So consider it. Once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And once again, if while you are watching here, do not forget to like this video while you're watching. Let's give it the old thumbs up. I'd appreciate that. Let's move on to this. Last Friday, I did an Unfound Now regarding the disappearance of Marilane Carter. And I'm sure that many of you are now aware that she was found deceased in her car, very close to where her phone last pinged in the Tennessee, Arkansas, Memphis area on right off of Interstate 55. And it's like right in that area, Interstate 55 and I-40, they cross very close to there. And you should know that somebody in her family did contact me this past weekend through Messenger, and I did talk to this person. We had several back and forths, and he was asking me for my opinions and any help that I could give him. And I was just telling him about some of the statistics that I mentioned during the Unfound Now regarding when a person and a vehicle go missing at the same time. That in Unfound's experience, usually the car, if that's what happens, it's much more likely that the car is found and the person isn't than neither of them are found. In fact, I stated that we only had a few, 3% of the disappearances we've covered are ones in which a person and a car went missing and they both remain missing for quite a long time. Usually cars are found and the people are still missing. Well, in this one, of course, we now know that Marilane, was found in her car. And as Sheree and I were talking about earlier this evening when we had our discussion, who would have thunk it that she would be found in a container, in like a shipping container like you see on a, one of these freighters ships. You see them, they're really long and they got these things all stacked, like Legos. She and her car were found in one of those. And I think that the family is satisfied with the idea that, unfortunately, Marilane committed suicide. Sheree was also telling me earlier that anything that you might have read about a gun or anything are just rumors. At this point, we do not believe that Marilane killed herself with a firearm. I think that going in a different direction. Now, what are we to make of this? What are the odds that a woman driving from Kansas to Alabama would pull off the interstate and do everything that she did, and she ended up finding a container in which to drive her car and die in there? It's an odd one. I don't think there's any foul play in this, but it's odd. But in a way, I don't think that I am surprised because, as I illustrated during the Unfound Now, in that first segment that she drove from Kansas to that hotel, that drive should have only taken like 4.5 hours or something, but it took her 8. And it, of course, led me to believe that she was doing a lot of driving around and And now I think we know why she was driving around. I think that she was driving around looking to find a place where she could die. That's my suspicion. And she continued to do that until she found some place that seemed like it was the right place. And truthfully, I mean, who would have thunk it to look inside a container like that? Who would have thought to do that? But you never know. It's just the way with Esther Westenbarger. Who would have thought that people were driving past that retention pond for years and she was there the whole time? And it very well could have been that way with Marilane Carter. Fortunately, they had good cell phone information and they knew the last area uh, where it pinged. However, I will tell you, when I was talking to this family member, at the time I was telling them, it's been 2 weeks. Everybody's been looking in this area and they haven't found her. I think you need to start widening the search area up a bit. But I think we now know why it took this long, is because those storage containers were on private property. And I think we're still a little unclear as to, was it one of Marilane's family members who happened upon that container, or was it the owner of the property who did that? I'm still not sure about that. Valerie, I think she had a mental break. She shouldn't have been driving. So sad for her kids. I think that's certainly been a topic, Valerie. And I think that I don't know how long people are going to continue to talk about Marilane's disappearance, but it certainly is a topic. And I think that we have to learn, if you have people that you love who are experiencing issues like that, that you can't let them be by themselves. You can't let them go off. Of course, a disappearance that I think of right away on this is David Hardy Jr. He was a guy who had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and still he was going out and driving around and doing whatever he wanted. And I'm inclined to believe that that was what led to his disappearance. I'm not here to judge. Of course, his daughter was, and I want to help her in any way I can. But I got the feeling, I think a lot of you did too, in doing that interview, is that the family was just a little afraid of restricting David's choices that he was making. And he had gotten lost before, but all those other times he had been led home or been found. And then this time, that's not what happened. So, same way with Marilane Carter. Retrospect, she shouldn't have been in that car by herself. If she wanted to get help in Birmingham, Alabama, like she said she wanted to, then somebody should have escorted her or driven her there or flown there. Somebody should have come and gotten her. But I have to tell you, I think that was a ruse on her part. I don't think she ever had any intention of making it to Birmingham, Alabama. I think that was just a story. I think. Hello, LaFord. Good to see you. Vegas girl. Hey, Ed, how are you? I'm doing great. Vegas. Doing great. Except for this morning when the landscaper guys around this building started getting their chainsaws out at about 7 this morning and cutting, some of the growths off the palm trees around this building. Except for that, I'm having a pretty good day. All of you should know that I go to bed quite late. It's not unusual for me to be up until like 2 a.m. And then I usually don't get up till 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Now, I know you're saying, well, you're sleeping. Well, I don't go to bed till 2 as well. That's just kind of the routine that I've gotten in. It's not unusual for me to go out this front door and take a little chair and go out there and take my laptop and be sitting out there looking like toward the east, toward Clearwater, the city of Clearwater, over the inland bay there. Just a beautiful sight at night. Because you look out the way toward the Gulf, there's nothing out there. It's dark. There's nobody out there, no ships or anything. So if you look out this way, you have a few cars going by, you have some pretty lights, maybe a plane or flyover. And I'll just be out there doing work at like 1:30 in the morning. So, so when it happens that the landscapers show up at 7 in the morning with their blowers and their trimmers and everything else, yeah. Vegas girl, that's good. I did my first live stream today. I'm great. Live streaming for what, Vegas? Don't leave us hanging for that, Vegas girl. What were you live streaming today? You have to tell us. Yeah, Valerie, thank you. Agreed. Kathy says 2 a.m. is early. I usually stay up all night. Are you a vampire, Kathy? Is that what you sleep during the day and party all night? Is that what you're doing there, Kathy? Okay. But very sad with Marilane Carter. I think that I know that there have been people out there that have been I just don't want to hit the family too hard on this. I just think that I'm just telling you, since we can't bring Marilane back, what can we learn from this? And what we can learn is, if you have somebody that you love, you care about, who has had the same symptoms as Marilane, and the person says, yeah, well, I'm going to drive somewhere, I would not allow them to do that. That's all I'm saying. Joyce Rivatuzo, welcome. Joyce is in the house. Hello, Joyce. Vegas Girls, my YouTube platform, I'm basing it on online bullying. Well, I got to tell you, Vegas Girl, that's a spectacular topic. And I hope you do well with it. I'm not a fan of that either. I stay away from all of that stuff. It's horrible. Let's move on to a question. And Jill always, you probably recognize her name. Jill always manages to get in a question, at least one question every week. And I think last week I answered 2 of her questions. But Jill asks me, what do you believe could be a great invention in finding the missing? Well, Jill, it all depends on how space age we want to get. We're going to start putting chips in people, GPS on people. And I suppose there are people out there who believe in that. I don't. So anything that I'm going to say would have to be in line with, the way my particular worldview. And it would also have to be somewhat realistic. I suppose we start talking Star Trek, beaming people and all that. I think that's just a little crazy as far as we understand technology right now. But something that I think is very realistic. In fact, I've talked about this before. If anybody wants to take the time to do it, it would be a lot of work. And the work would have to be done by people in a particular field of study. But what I think would be a great invention would be an algorithm to figure out if people, when they go missing, to figure out if it's the kind of disappearance where he or she is going to be found in a couple days, or is it much more likely that this person could be missing for a long time? I'm inclined to believe that if we were to crunch the numbers on all missing persons cases, well, not all of them, but let's just say the ones on NamUs, that if we were to break them down by all the different demographics that we can think of regarding age, location, drug addiction, mother, father, any kind of demographic that we can think of. And then whatever those different categories are, and then match that up, those categories against all of these people who are found, let's just say within a week, and compare the two groups, I think that you would be able to start determining some, a way to make an algorithm that would show you the probability of a person remaining missing or coming back fairly, very shortly. And then from that algorithm, investigators could be armed with that. So when they show up for a missing persons call, they have, it could be an app on their phone or, police computer or whatever. And they ask the person a series of questions, let's say 20 questions. And then the computer would spit out a probability of that person returning within a week or within 2 weeks or something like that. Because I have to tell you, they already do that. And doctors already do that when it comes to taking your medical history, what your parents suffer from or what they died from. If you, like, for me, I have 2 brothers and a sister who are very much older than I am. I know at least some of their medical history. I can give that information to my doctor, and then he can combine that with the blood tests that get done on me, everything, with the triglycerides and cholesterol and all of that. And there's a computer program that he has that can tell me how probable it is that I'm going to have a heart condition, let's say within the next 10 years. Now, you should know, for me, it's very, very low. Why? Because my weight is good. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I haven't had any big, medical issues to this point in my life. My biological mother lived to be 88 years old, although my biological father did die at 79 from cancer. Even though my brothers and my sister have had some things going on, for the most part, them being in their late 60s, they still get around really well. All of this can be put into this program or whatever that my personal doctor has, and he can tell me most likely, what the next 10 years of my life are probably going to be. Now, because cancer does run in my family, of course, I have to watch out for that. But we should be able to do that with missing persons cases because we have the statistics. We know how many people go missing. We know how many people come back. We know who these people are. We know their names. We know where they live. We know their age. We know their ethnicity, everything about them, both the people who come back and the people who don't. And because of that, there should be mathematicians and sociologists and psychologists that can come together to come up with some sort of computer programmers to come up with some sort of 20 item questionnaire. Because why do I say all this? Why do I think this would be the greatest invention? Because still, the number one reason, the big problem with disappearances is that at least within those first few days, at least from a human point of view, the people who are going to come back in a couple days, their missing person case looks exactly like the missing person case that could go unsolved for 20 years. This is a big problem, as we've talked about endlessly on this program. Why? Because your average police officer's experience is 99.9% of people come back within a week. So when they show up that's what's already in their head when they show up. Whereas we need to take that out of the human mind. We should take that job away from the human mind and give it to something, a computer, which is much more objective. And I think if we did that, I'm not saying that we could improve the investigation of disappearances by 50%, but I'd like to think we could improve it by 20%, 25%. I mean, that would be a big deal. So, Jill, to answer your question, if somebody wants to put the work into that, I think that would be a great invention for missing persons cases. And it is something that you can do in the 21st century because we now have the computer ability to do that. We carry, our phones have more computing power than everything that was used to put a man on the moon. We might as well use it for missing persons cases. Now, I know somebody will say, well, we need to start chipping people and everything else. And I'm not getting into that. That's going to be something that's, I think, going to be repulsive to a lot of people. Whereas a computer program just using statistics of disappearances we already know about is how we go about anything in lives. That's how businesses stay in business. That's how political parties or candidates try to win elections, by crunching numbers. That's how FBI solves crimes, by crunching numbers. That's the way we're going to have to do it with missing persons cases too. The problem is nobody's taken on the challenge yet. Joyce, Vegas. Joyce, hey, Ed, loving the podcast tonight. Well, thank you, Joyce. Doing my best. Hello, Zebra. How are you? So, Jill, I hope that answers your question. I think that that's something that is attainable. It's not something that's so far off in like Star Trek land. And I think we have all of the capabilities of doing that if all the different people can come together. Let's move on to this. Ashley Freeman, Laura Bible. Maybe some of you saw this, that they went and dug in a basement of a house in the general area of where Laura and Ashley disappeared, of course, back in 1999/2000. I believe they went to this place because of Ronnie Busick, who is now in jail. And this is something that he told them that they should go check this place out. They dug, found nothing. I can't say that I'm surprised that much. If you will remember, there is a deal on the table right now that if Ronnie does give information that leads to Ashley and Laura being found, then his sentence will be reduced by 5 years. And so far, nothing has come up. And I guess he has a little less than 2 weeks to come through on that, or that deal would not exist anymore. What do I think about it? I guess that he has said all along that he doesn't know where they are. I think that he said that from the time that he got arrested, which seems like yesterday, but I know it was, what was it, April 2019 or something like that. Our experience, I think, tells us that many of these people like him have no problem going to jail. And even if they're offered a deal, some of them will take the secrets to their death. And even though I do believe that prosecutors, district attorneys should make an attempt to put deals on the table if these people were involved, if they believe they were involved in a missing persons case. Give up the location of where this person is, and we'll give you, a discount. And sometimes that works, but oftentimes it doesn't. Twinkle says, I think he's not all mentally there. I saw it on our local news. Yes, Twinkle, that is certainly a factor. That I don't think he was born that way, but something, he got shot in the 1970s, and something affected him mentally, that it may be that he doesn't even remember it. Or I don't know if it has affected his IQ or his memory, his intelligence. I don't know. But he is trying to, he's seemingly trying to help them, but of course it's led nowhere. But I just want to assure all of you that just because, he led them to a place and they weren't there, doesn't mean he doesn't know. We really just don't know what he knows. He might have known at one time and forgot. I mean, once again, I don't know what kind of mental incapacity he has. He may have long-term memory loss. I don't know. So So it was in the news. They went and dug this place up. Nothing was there. You will also remember earlier this year. Thank you, Pamela. You're very generous. Thank you so much. Thank you. You remember earlier this year that they were looking around some wells or pits or something in that area of Oklahoma. And of course, nothing was found there either. As I stated at the time, if the plan is to just randomly go to every well that was ever dug in Oklahoma since the beginning of time, then they're never going, they're just going to randomly do that, they're not going to find Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible. There's just too many places to look. And I don't mean to be negative, but if they're just relying on luck, then good luck with that. And I'd also remind all of you, when was the last time you heard a missing persons case where remains were found in a well? I'm not saying it's never happened, but it's pretty rare. Just don't know. The big question is, if Ronnie Busick doesn't know, does anybody on this earth know? And I don't know. I just don't know. Of course, now 20 years later, we know that there were several people who knew that these three guys murdered the Freemans and took these two girls and killed them. Many more than these three guys. And there are these other women in these men's lives. Those are the people, those are the ones who should be being questioned. And maybe they have been, maybe they say they don't know anything, but I can't imagine the situation that Laura Bible's mother, who was my guest back in 2017, I can't imagine what they're going through right now. I think that we have to get very comfortable with the idea that their remains are never found. And if they are going to be found, they're probably going to be found by accident. You also might think of the Teresa Butler case, where that guy has gone to jail, even though her remains have not been found. And he told a story that I still don't believe. So it's so sad. It's just so sad. I'm inclined to believe that if Ronnie Busick was going to talk and knew where Ashley and Laura were, he would have done so by this time. That doesn't mean he doesn't know. I'm just saying, if he was going to talk, he would have talked by now. I think. Joyce, oops. How can you say this if you forgot? Well, we just don't, Joyce, we just don't know what situation Ronnie Busick is in mentally. It seems every article that's been written about him since all this popped up and he was charged is about his mental incapacity. His whatever's going on with his mind, it's not like your average humans. So I think it is possible, and there are medical conditions where people can suffer from that. And it's not like Alzheimer's or dementia or anything like that, but have you ever seen the movie Memento? People who have long-term memory loss, short-term memory loss. Could be genetic. It could be because of something else. Now, in Ronnie's case, I thought I remember reading that it happened because he got shot, and I don't know if he got hit in his head or there was a blood loss that caused not enough blood to go to the brain or something like that. I'm not sure, but I could have sworn that it had something to do with him getting shot back in the 70s, because he's not a young man. Jasmine agrees with me. Okay, Jasmine. Touching. The man that killed this girl in Lima was supposed to talk to the prosecutors the next day, and he killed himself in jail, and they found her around the same time. And that happens. Touching. It It happens. I'm glad that him killing himself did not get in the way of them finding her. But a lot of these people, both men and women kill people too, of course. A lot of these people go to their graves knowing things they never talk about. It's just the way it is. And I suppose that if we lived in a different kind of society, if we lived in a different kind of country and everything, where let's just say that the torture is used on just regular criminals and things, then I'm sure we could get the answers that we want. But that's not what we do here. So the search goes on for Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible. Let's move on to this. Layla Cavett. This is another topic Sheree and I were talking about earlier this evening. There's now a man in custody for her disappearance, and I've even read that there was a body found somewhere that could be Layla's. I just saw that in passing. This guy's name is Shannon Ryan. They had him on video dropping Layla's 2-year-old son off in the apartment complex where the son was eventually found all by himself. Maybe some of you even saw it. Sheree had sent it to me a couple days ago. Shannon, when his name popped up in this investigation, he did a 50-minute, I guess it would have been Facebook Live. I don't think it was YouTube. I think it was Facebook Live. I wouldn't even know what to call it. Let's just say it took him 50 minutes to claim that he didn't do anything to Leila Cavett. And so if it takes you 50 minutes to do that, I think that's all we need to know. He is a self-professed witch doctor. And I did not watch all 50 minutes. I kind of just clicked through and watched little snippets of it. Kook. He's a kook. Just a total kook. Now, what did he do to get Layla to drive from Georgia the whole way down to South Florida? I'm sure they're going to be looking at that. What was it? What did he say to her? Did they know each other? Had they been talking online for a while? Did he portray himself to be somebody who he wasn't? Was this like a catfishing deal? I just don't know. I think at this point, being that Layla is most likely deceased and that Shannon Ryan has been charged, with kidnapping, or not murder yet, but with kidnapping, I think at this point we just have to be happy he didn't do anything to the 2-year-old son too. I think that this is where mentally and emotionally we have to be now, because it could have been even worse. But this guy is a kook, and in fact, Sheree told me that he could be connected to another missing woman who vanished from the same area back in July. And I know Sheree told me the name, but I forget it now. But so I don't know what this guy has a business. I don't know if he's kind of a psychic, witch doctor, palm reader, numerologist, life improvement coach. I don't know. Once again, I think his video's out there if you want to watch it, if you have 50 minutes to waste. But he is certainly a kook and talking around the subject. And I think even when Sheree sent me the video, I said to her, so it took him 50 minutes to claim that he didn't do anything to Layla. Okay. But he is now in custody. But, I can't remember the last time that a self-professed witch doctor was in the news. But I think there's still more to understand about this. Did he get her down there because he wanted to buy her truck? Did get her down there online? I think that is fairly important in trying to know what exactly all happened here. And, if she drove down there, why did she take her 2-year-old son with her? If this was kind of a romantic type of thing or whatever it was going to be, whatever Shannon lied to her about, why would she take her 2-year-old son with her to do this? How long was she planning to be down there? Was she going to be staying there? I don't know if we have all those answers. Sheree says scammer, kidnapper, felon, possible murder. Absolutely. All of that, Sheree. Tamara says here in Australia, we have a rule for those in jail for missing people. No body, no parole. It's led to people talking, but it's not always the case. I can't totally disagree. Hello, Penny. I can't totally disagree with that, Tamara. We covered a disappearance of Angie Yarnell, where her husband went to jail for her disappearance for 4 years, and now he's out and she's still missing. So that certainly might have worked in his situation. Of course, he'll say, well, I told them what happened, and they just didn't find her where I told them she was. If you'll remember, he claimed that she fell off their balcony, hit her head, and died. And then he took a canoe or something, he got in the canoe with her. He was going to bury her out on this island in this lake. And on the way out there, the body fell off the canoe into the water and he couldn't find her and he just left her there. That's his story. And he led the police out there. They sent divers down there. They didn't find anything. The truth is, we know she's not in the water. I think that we can say that he probably just outright murdered her. And the reason he doesn't want her body found is because it'll show he did outright murder her. But he only got 4 years and he can never be prosecuted again for it. It's crazy. Shree says Shannon has only been charged with kidnapping Layla's baby. Thank you for clarifying that, Shree. So I got to tell you, I hand it to all you women out there. The internet is a crazy, crazy, crazy place. I really restrict where I go on it because there is so many dark corners of it. But for a guy, I think that it's a lot different. A grown man, it's a lot different. But for women, it just seems a lot more dangerous for all of you. So I just hope you will watch yourselves wherever you do go on the internet. So just once again, this feels like very much like Marilane Carter's, where it seems that her death could have been avoided. And Leila Cavett's, it certainly kind of feels the same way. Let me answer another question. Twinkle says, women are so vulnerable. I didn't realize that for many years. Well, so many creeps out there, a lot of kooks, a lot of people pretending to be people who they aren't. And I know that, people do use the internet to meet other people for romance, for dating, just for sex and all of that. But if you're going to do that type of thing, I hope you will do it through a reputable place where the risk is lower, a lot lower than it would be if you were just doing it on your own. Let's move on to this question. Valerie, and I think Valerie is in here. Do you think Star Trek will ever come back to Vegas after COVID? That was a good gig. They made money for years. Wonder why it closed. Well, having worked there, Valerie, so having seen it firsthand, it made money for a while. I will tell you that, I didn't start there until May of 2000. And it had opened in 1998. I forget when in 1998, but sometime in 98. I'm going to, And already, uh, even 2 years into it, it was already hugely less popular than when it started. I started there at a time where, um, how do I put this? The attraction was actually built into two halves, and they were mirror images of each other. So you could have groups on seeing the same show. It'd be like two different theaters for the same show. Or like if you were to go to a regular amusement park where they have roller coasters, there's like two roller coasters instead of one. That's kind of what it was like at Star Trek. They actually had two bridges and four different simulators. But already by the time I started there in May 2000, we only used one half of the attraction at a time. Whereas when it opened, it was so busy, they were using both theaters at the same time. Whereas when I started there, they were already down to only using one side. And I can tell you that the popularity of it over the 4.5 years that I worked there, it continued to go down, go down. And we got the new attraction, the Borg Encounter in 2004, which was kind of cool. But to be honest, it wasn't as good as the Klingon Encounter, which is the part I worked on and performed. So I think that it was cool, but I think it also got old fast. And there was a lot, it took a huge investment to put that there. And because we had 4 simulators, we had a lot of computer technology that needed make everything work and everything. It was a huge investment they put in there. And I really still don't know if they got it all back. I don't know. Of course, the irony of it was they shut it down right before Star Trek, the new series, got started with Christopher Pine as Kirk. And they shut it down right before that started. Now, but maybe the problem was that even those movies have kind of died out. The first one was really good. Then the one where they brought Khan back. I forget the actor's name now, but him playing Khan. And then the third one, they totally went kind of downhill as well. So just doesn't seem Paramount can keep that franchise going, even though they have so much to work with. So to answer your question, Valerie, probably not. I know that there have been rumors about it, something maybe opening downtown on Fremont Street and a bunch of different things. I've even, maybe something in LA or, I just can't see it. I just can't see it. Well, yeah, Angela, Ricardo Montalban, but in the new Star Trek starting in like 2008, they redid Khan, and it's the same actor who plays Doctor Strange in the Marvel series. I can't think of his name right now. Cumberbatch. There you go. Benedict Cumberbatch. I knew it'd come to me. Yeah, he plays Khan. I hope I'm not ruining it for anybody. But it just wasn't as good as Wrath of Khan. It wasn't even close. It was okay, but it was no Wrath of Khan. So Valerie, I just don't see it. I just, Star Trek, once again, it was kind of, the TV series did very well up through Voyager. Then Enterprise wasn't very good, and it kind of died away. And then they brought out the new movie with Christopher Pine and starting, going back to how it all got started. And I thought that was real good. But then the next couple movies have not been good, and they just kind of lost all the momentum. J.J. Abrams kind of got it restarted again, and then they kind of they had it, and then they lost it again, just like they kind of lost it with the Next Generation crowd with the first movie. Star Trek Next Generations was okay. And then First Contact I thought was really good. And then the movies after that were not good at all. They had it, they let it slip away. They had it again, they let it slip away. Whereas me, I just don't know how they keep messing it up. You got such a great universe there. They keep messing it up. Of course, the TV shows have done well. Star Trek Discovery, Star Trek Picard have done well, although I watched Star Trek Picard and I watched every episode. I'm going to be honest with you. I had no idea what was going on. I'm just going to be honest with you. It was so confusing. And I love Jean-Luc Picard, but they just overthink it. It just seems to me they overthink it so many times. And I would say the same thing about Star Wars. Mandalorian was spectacular, but it was very simple. It was a very simple plot throughout the series. And you had Baby Yoda, which was beautiful. But everything else Star Trek has done since like 1999, in my opinion, has not been good. And so with Star Trek, it's kind of the same thing. Sherry, speaking of Nevada, Dawn posted today that there would be no investigation regarding Chris. Any news on what's going on with that? I don't have any new news, Sherry. I didn't even know that. Valerie says, Valerie, who asked the question, wow, cool, you got to get to work there. Valerie, am I to understand you asked me that question without knowing that I worked at Star Trek in Las Vegas? Is that true? You didn't know that I worked there? That's fine. Nobody's required to know that, but it's funny that you asked me and not knowing that I actually worked there for 4.5 years. Oh yeah. In fact, most of my friends from Las Vegas are my fellow performers for sure. I would say 75% of my friends from Las Vegas all worked at Star Trek at the time. ZSR, any updates on Tom Brown? ZSR, all I can tell you is that we are pursuing a couple different things. Last week or the week before, I told you how Cherie had gotten information showing that on the night that Tom disappeared, that Pine Gregory and Deputy De Herrera were on a DUI call at the time that Tom disappeared. This is something that Pine had told me when I talked to him back in November of 2019, and we checked that out, and he is telling the truth on that. So we are now pursuing a couple other points of fact, trying to prove that those things are factual as well. And when I have answers on those things, after telling Penny, his mother, I will tell all of you. Penny, ever-evolving writers have to continually be racing on the cutting edge of trends and audience interest. Well, that's true, Penny. That's true. But something like Star Trek, you have such a rich history with so many different characters and universes and race and planets and everything else. And it is amazing to me how much they mess it up. It just blows my mind. It just does. I love the original series. I love the Next Generation TV series. Deep Space Nine had some really, really good episodes, and then some episodes were, it got better as it went on. Voyager, I liked Voyager. A lot of people did not like it. I like it even before 7 of 9 was on there. I've seen every episode of that. I've seen every episode of Deep Space Nine. I've seen every episode of Next Generation. I've seen every episode of the original series. But I've not watched one episode of Enterprise. To me, it's unwatchable. To me. So, Valerie, I hope that answers your question. I'm particularly interested to know that you asked me about Star Trek going back to Vegas, but maybe you didn't realize that I worked there. That is interesting to me. It's very interesting to me. Touching says, Ed, did you ever go to the pawn shop there in Vegas that is on Pawn Stars on TV? I've never been in that. No. Touching. I know my buddy Brad, who I lived with for a very short time when I moved to Las Vegas. He and his wife went there just to check it out. I'll admit, having watched the series maybe back in the day, but that's pawn shops and stuff. It's just not my thing. But yeah, it's right there on Las Vegas Boulevard. I passed it many times. It's been there for years, well before it ever became a TV show. But to be honest with you, I think in 13 and a half years, I was maybe only in a pawn shop in Las Vegas twice. Maybe. Just not. Let's just put it this way. Particular types of people that end up in pawn shops. Just pawn shops. There are a million pawn shops in Las Vegas for a reason. Let's move on to this. I don't know, not touching. They get a lot of really neat things on that show. They do touching, but allow me just to remind you, it is reality TV. I know it's an interesting show, but I hope you please understand that the way they shoot things on TV is not really what goes on in that store. Jolene Matthews. Grand jury is being convened in Colorado. And Steve Pankey, of course, I interviewed him last October for about 3.5 hours. He's been implicated in Jolene Matthews' murder. And he has been called to testify. I have not spoken to Steve in months and months and months. Maybe I haven't spoken to him since last November or something, or December. No reason for that. I'm not avoiding him or anything. Just no reason to talk to him. But I also understand reading an article about what's going to be going on. I guess that from what I've read, there are other suspects that they have. But Steve Pankey is being called to testify. Of course, he professes his innocence. And if you'll remember from the interview I did with him, Janelle Matthews. Thank you. I got that. Wrote that down wrong. Janelle Matthews or Jolene Matthews. Now you got me confused, Cherie. I have it written here as Janelle Matthews. You're probably right, Cherie. I got the N's and the L's switched around. But, of course, Steve professes his innocence and that he tells the story about his father-in-law who came to talk to him and, got the idea that his father-in-law might have been involved somehow in Janelle Matthews's, of course, disappearance at the time. And then we now know she was murdered when her remains were found last year. Because it's a grand jury, none of it will be made public. But I promise you that once I find out that the grand jury is closed and I know that Steve Pankey has said things, I will try to get something out of him. And we know how much Steve likes to talk, even though I know that's under seal and he's not allowed to talk to anybody. But I'll do my best. I mean, that's my job. I am an interviewer. I am a reporter. So once we hear that the grand jury is all wrapped up, and I'm sure that Steve has already, been questioned, I will try to find out from him how it went, and I'll let all of you know. Penny, no need for reply. Multifaceted productions. You're right on Enterprise. 7 of 9, way cool. Pawn shops, unreality TV. That's exactly true, Penny. That's why you're here, Sheree, to try to fact check everything I say. And if I get something wrong, thank you, Kathy. It is Janelle. I have it written as Jolene. Maybe because I was talking to Jolene Oni earlier today. Maybe that's the reason I wrote it down that way. Christine, thank you from Canada. How's everything up in Canada these days? Hope you're doing well. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Deeply appreciated. So Janelle Matthews, I'm not sure what to make of it. Does this mean that they're going to try to charge somebody? I guess. But it's interesting to me that Steve Pankey has been asked to testify along with other people who they say are also possible suspects. Just not sure what to make of that. But I'll try to find out. I have to tell you, I continue to believe that Steve Pankey told the truth when I spoke to him last year. He answered every question. Whether it's the truth or not, I don't know, but I thought I grilled him pretty hard. And I get the idea about Steve Pankey is that there is a certain amount of paranoia that's in his personality a little bit. And I like I said, I really don't have a bad word to say about him. Every time I talk to him, fine. I have no bad words to say about him at all. But I do know that it does seem that he does seem to, when things happen, he seems to see them as being some sort of slight against him. And people are after him and trying to pin things on him, where it's clear to me that had he not gone to the police way back when Janelle went missing about this story about his father-in-law, that I don't think Steve Pankey would be a suspect at all. I think. That's what I think. Valerie, Steve, oh boy, he was all over the place. I believe he had issues trying to get attention. It's just something about him. Like I said, though, I don't have any bad words to say about him. But he does have a unique personality, and I think there's something in there that he has brought. I can't help but think he's kind of brought this on himself. Sheree, I'm surprised how quiet the grand jury always is. Never linking anything. I know they are under oath, but people leak stuff all the time. Never hear of grand jury members exposing information. Sheree, feel bad for the grand jury that Pankey spoke to. Twinkle said he's kind of likable, stating, well, I've never talked to him in person. He's not my next door neighbor. He doesn't work in the next cubicle from me. So it's easy to like somebody from 2,500 miles away. But like I said, for the purposes of doing the program, interviewing him, me asking the questions and him answering them, I have no complaints about him at all. And I still remain convinced that he had nothing to do with this. It's just hard to put him on that street where Janelle was that evening, how he would know that she was there and everything else. And just don't know. And if you'll remember, I even got to talk to Steve's coworker when they worked at Mountain Dew or whatever, the bottling company at the time. And the way he expressed his connection to Steve was very much different the way Steve had their connection. The guy that I talked to said they weren't even in the same divisions together. They hardly even knew each other. They had no reason to really run across each other. Whereas to your Steve talk, they were running into each other all the time, and this guy didn't like Steve. I wasn't there. I don't know. But somebody's lying. Somebody is. Penny. So Steve Pankey, he is wicked and wicked smart. He reminds me of people with multiple personality disorder. It's actually creepy how flat his effect tends to be. He did well in the interview. He may be totally wicked. Penny. Very well could be. But I guess what I'm saying is that I asked all the questions that I could, and I didn't hear any contradictions in any of them. I think anybody can go back and listen to that. Tamara, I think he may have some mental health issues, possibly due to drug use, alcohol abuse, etc. My brother-in-law acts the same way, paranoia because of those reasons. Don't think he's guilty. Tamara, very well could be true. Very well could be true. Steve, we stayed away from certain parts of his personality or his background because I like to keep Unfound PG rated. But in other conversations with other people, he was talking about his sexual history and all of that. And I just was not going to touch that at all. So he does seem like the type of guy. It's just diarrhea of the mouth. You ask him a question, he'll just blah, 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 say anything. Let's answer another question. Sue asked me, if I won megabucks, how would I spend that money to improve the missing persons community? Well, I think I've already, in answering Jill's question about great inventions, I think that I would put some money into doing what I said, putting together with mathematicians and sociologists and statistics experts and computer programmers, start working on some sort of study into creating a computer program that can determine the probability of missing persons cases and, which people are going to come back and which ones aren't. I think that would be, it's a very worthwhile pursuit, I believe, because that's what they do in all other types of areas, business, sports, everything else, just crunching numbers. Other than that, I guess we could start our own private investigation firm all over the United States that specializes in missing persons cases. There's that. Here's one thing I know I wouldn't do. I surely would not start offering rewards for information on disappearances, because rewards just don't work. They just don't. I think that after 180 disappearances that we've covered, we know that for the most part, rewards, all they do is bring out a bunch of people who are lying, and they're hoping they just get lucky on something so they can collect the money. That's what rewards do. And it's not, I think, unfortunately, when people start thinking about rewards, they start thinking about the Old West. It's 1872, and there's a bad guy on the loose, and it's, bring him in, dead or alive, $100. And that might have worked back then. It's just not the way it works now. I think we know now that if people are going to come forward with information, they'll come forward. If they're not going to come forward with information, they're not going to come forward. And if they're not going to come forward, we're just going to have to work for it. We're just going to have to find the information ourselves. So one thing I would not do is offer any rewards for any information on any disappearances. Something I might also like to do with winning mega bucks, depending on or Powerball, is that how much ever it would be, maybe set up a conference for missing persons families once a year. Bring them to a conference center, convention center sometime. Bring them in on our own buck and talk to them. Let them meet each other and have some psychologists there and have some investigators there, and I think that might be cool too. But I haven't played Powerball or Megabucks in a while, so I would have to start playing for all this to happen. But I give you my word that if it were to happen, we're getting up to I start thinking Powerball, I start thinking like 200 million or something, and then you start you get to maybe keep half of that. That's what I would do. Those are some of the ideas that are that happen off the the top of my head. Sheree says regarding Steve Pankey, true enough, no contradictions. However, there's certain things that would give a pause. Yeah. No contradictions. That doesn't mean he's not lying, Sheree. But I still have doubts about this conversation with his father-in-law. I think he very well could have imagined it. Very well could have. Never happened. Penny, right on no contradictions. That's where Wicked Smart comes into play. Well, you're right, Penny. I did my best. I did my absolute best, especially considering that I'd never met the guy, and that it's been so many few decades now, and he certainly had, if he's lying, if he did, I should say, kill Jonelle Matthews, then he certainly had time to get his story straight. Uh, Penny says a go-to help center would be great if I would wing Powerball. Yeah, sure, Penny. Absolutely. And Sue, you asked me that question. Okay, Sue, you're welcome. Those are just some ideas off the top of my head. I think that would move everything in the right direction. Let's move on to this. Jesse Ross. There is a film that was made. It's called When I Last Saw Jesse. It is now on YouTube. I've not had a chance to watch it yet. It's on YouTube. It's for free. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. So I can't tell you much about it, but it is on there. I think it got mentioned during my interview with his father at the end of last year. So if you'd be interested in seeing that, I think we linked to it in the discussion group. You can check that out. Once again, I've not watched it yet. I plan to watch it, but I haven't watched it yet. But once again, now it is, I think it was at some film festivals or something, but is now for free on YouTube. Kathy says I watched it twice. And Kathy, you're saying it was excellent. Huh? Kathy, if I may ask, did you learn anything new from watching the film? Anything that maybe you didn't know about? I think, of course, we tried to do our best when his father was on the program, but anything that really jumped out at you having watched it twice? I think everybody would like to hear on that. So please type that if you could. So thank you for the link, Shree. There's the link for anybody that's interested. But I believe this, when I last saw Jesse, it was done by a guy, I think, who actually was in Chicago when this all happened and knew Jesse. So I'll be interested to watch it. But Kathy, I would certainly like your critique of it, and especially if anything really jumped out at you that you hadn't heard before. Let's move on to this. The round table. Sheree and I spoke at about 8 tonight about it. And I think I can start saying a little bit more about it. What we're going to do is that we as a group, myself and the assistants, Blaze says, I'm here listening, guys, having an arthritis flare, so night topping. Well, Blaze, good to see you this evening. Thank you for the little heart, too. The round table, we're going to attempt to do a more long form type of series in which we're going to we've already picked out the case, and I'm not going to say what the disappearance is right this second, but Shree was responsible. It's Shree's idea. It's a spectacular one. And Shree also picked out the disappearance that we're going to work on. And it's also a very good one that I'm sure most of you have never heard of. I hadn't heard of it until Shree told me about it. But there's certainly a lot of information, a lot of people to talk to. So I suppose when I say this, a long form type of multiple episode, we're going to do a series of episodes on one particular disappearance. And between those episodes, we're going to be doing our own investigation, own research, trying to contact people. And then when we find out things, we do another episode. Then we go out and even do more, come back, record another episode, and keep going that until we get to the end, however many episodes that is. And it's called the Unfound Round Table because we're all working together. We're all sitting at a table together, and we'll be discussing the items, the facts, and everything that we find. In just talking to Sheree for about a half hour tonight, there's a lot to do. There's cell phone records. There's multiple persons of interest. There's ex-husbands. There's friends. There's maps. The car that this person was in when the person went missing, on and on and on. So there's a lot to do. And I think that over the course of a multitude of episodes, we can start digging out digging up more information. I suppose for some of you, you're going to think maybe of what Payne Lindsay did with Tara Grinstead. I'm thinking it's something similar to that. But, in Tara's situation, a lot of her disappearance was already known. Of course, I don't even think in Payne's case, they ever mention the names of the guys who were eventually charged with their disappearance. And I want to remind everybody, Tara Grinstead's remains have still not been found. But I think that being that we're going to take on a disappearance that's much lesser known, that people haven't, I would say, talked to death about it and theorized to death about it, that we have the ability to bring a lot more new facts and unknown information to the public than probably Payne did when he did his, once again, because so much about Tara's disappearance was already out there when he decided to cover her disappearance in 2016. So we're going to do something like that. But different in that I don't know if we'll get to speak to an investigator who's working on the case. I don't know. I mean, we know about this by this time. They don't want to tell you anything. They'll be nice. They'll be respectful, but they'll just say, well, it's an ongoing investigation. We can't talk about it. So I just don't know. But I do know there's a lot to do, and we're going to do it. And you'll hear about it. And it will be over the course of multiple episodes. They'll be probably released on YouTube. And each of us, including myself, will have our own little piece to do from episode to episode, whether we have to put together a map or a video or contact certain people or file a FOIA request or whatever else. We will delegate. Each of us have our own little parts that we're supposed to work on. And then when we do those parts, we come together, we talk about it, we record it, and then all of you will get to hear what we've done and what each of us thinks about what each of us have done. And it's being called the Unfound Roundtable. And Sheree, thank you for such a great idea. But I'm not going to name the disappearance right at this point. But we have conflicting stories. We have, certain different people who are innocent people who have different theories on what happened. And I'm sure we're going to get to talk to some of those people and why they think what they do. I certainly hope that everybody wants to talk to us because that will, of course, make it really, really good. And I'm hoping that this can lead to this disappearance being solved. You should know that there are multiple persons of interest, but right now, at least at this point, we don't even know. We're not even sure. We suspect, but we're not sure why these people are even connected to the disappearance at all. We'll try to figure that out. Kathy says regarding the Jesse's movie, seeing the train, how intoxicated he was, still the same opinion for me, jumped into the river. All right. So really, this video did not change your opinion at all, Kathy, then. Okay. Sheree says, super excited. Unfound Roundtable coming soon. Thank you, Ed, so much for your support. You're welcome. Touching says, that sounds really exciting. I think so, too. I got pumped up just talking to Sheree about it tonight. Pumped up. Touching, me either. I've done genealogy for over 20 years, so I have lots of research, so maybe I could help in some way. Okay. Penny, Unfound, going around. Epic idea. Compiling information and opinions with updates will keep the case fresh. Touching, I have a lot of experience doing research. Okay. Touching, we might hold you to that. But, and you have to realize, I mean, it's not easy, and I'm glad I didn't have to do this. It's not easy when Sheree first brought the idea to me and talked about it, that, you have 15,000 cases to pick from. And so it's not easy to pick one. And especially if you're deciding to do it this way, that, there have to be certain criteria that a case needs to meet. And we decided that we wanted to do one that was in the cell phone era. So essentially from like 2000 and on, We wanted to do one where, it wasn't so obvious who the suspect probably was. We wanted one that that we could make some videos on with some maps and some video, and it'd be very information intensive for the viewer or listener. And that's not easy to find. Or if you do find, you find a multitude of them, and then it's trying to figure out which one is best. But I can assure you, this is one that I had not heard of until Cherie brought it to my attention. And we have answering machine messages and also a lot of different. And this is, Cherie, I think, is proving something that I've talked about since I started the program. But she in doing this, she proves my point. Is that why is it that it seems so many programs cover the same 25 disappearances over and over and over and over and over? Brian Lawson, Mara Murray, Jennifer Kesse, Brian Schaefer, Tara Grinstead. I mean, we know probably the top 20 that seems like every program has covered. And, we haven't covered any of them. But Cherie shows that, there are a lot of disappearances, missing people who should be getting the same attention. I think the impression maybe the public gets is, well, the reason all these people, the general public, not the true crime public, but the general public, well, the reason they always hear about Mara Murray is because, or all these other ones is because these are the ones that have all this information that can be talked about. And then every single other one doesn't have anything. I think that's the impression that the public gets when certain disappearances get over and over in written books and, and everything else. And I think after 180 disappearances of Unfound, we've proven that that's not the situation. There are many disappearances that are unknown to most people that need attention, and they have just as much information out there as any one of these other ones that are popular, that are well known. And Cherie certainly proved that with this one, because, why is this disappearance unknown, but Jennifer Kesse's is? Why is this one unknown, but Mara Murray's? And they should all be equally well known and really, 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 really well known. That's what we're trying to do. Penny says 15,000 to pick one down to go, 14,999 to go. It's like bottles of beer on the wall, Penny. So Cherie, I think, went about proving something that I've said. There are a lot of disappearances out there with a host of information, and somebody needs to dig into it because nobody else is doing it. Touching says, I've learned so much since I've been listening to Unfound. It's great to hear. We're all about education, Touching. We're all about education. That's everything. This program, what I'm doing right now, Unfound on the Ground, the think tank, the episodes, the books, everything. All of it. The number one idea is education, educating the public, educating anybody that listens to or reads anything or watches anything we do. By the way, while you're watching, please do not forget to like this video, give it the thumbs up on the device that you're using. I would deeply appreciate that. Just want to also give all of you an update on what we'll be doing in Unfound for the next couple weeks. This Friday, of course, I'll be talking about that disappearance here in a moment. But August 28th, I will be doing the 6th update episode. Lots to talk about. If you watch this live show then every week, then I have a lot to talk about for the update episode. September 4th, which is the first Friday of September, I will be doing the 4th anniversary episode. That will be replaying of Suzanne Lyle's episode from way back in 2016, but it will have new commentary at the end. Haven't figured out what I'm going to say yet, but it will have new commentary at the end. And somewhere in there, I'll be doing an in memoriam for Andrea Bowman, which means it will come out on a different day of the week. But that's going to be in there as well, where I will replay the episode, the interview, the entire episode, except for the part at the end of Andrea's episode where I interviewed her biological mother, Kathy. And then I will include new commentary at the end of that as well, so that we may recognize Andrea Bowman and, of course, her life, and also talk about now that Dennis Bowman is in custody. So it's going to be the next few weeks, and then back September 11th, coincidentally, the Friday, then I'm sure we will get back to more disappearances. You should know that I've already talked to some people. I haven't done any official interviews for September yet, but Emily has been doing a fantastic job finding people to talk to have on the program. And you'll be hearing from some of those people later in September. Cherie says you can keep up with everything Unfound at the website, The Unfound Podcast.com. Let me say that again, Cherie. You can keep up with everything Unfound does on the website, our website, theunfoundpodcast.com. And I want to thank Natasha for managing that. She does a great job. One more item, and this came up last night. I thought it was something that I needed to talk about, although I'm not going to mention any names. Last night, I was asked a question by somebody who I've worked with on Unfound before, a person who has helped with the program in a variety of ways. But the person asked me if I've ever been asked to take an episode down. Meaning we do the interview, the episode comes out, and then somewhere down the road, the guest comes to me and says, in retrospect, I don't think I should have done it. Will you take it down? I've had this happen twice in my memory. One was within maybe the last 3 or 4 months. Then the other one was going well back. And I will tell you, in both situations, of course, I think you would know if I had, the answer was no. Now, the reason this person asked me this was because this person has run into a situation as well. Not with a podcast, but with something else, where this person covered a disappearance. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to give away who it is, and everything. But then the family contacted this person and said, we would appreciate if you just took that all down. Now, this person does good work. Good work. And this person asked my opinion on it. And I just had to give this person what I've done when I've also been asked to do so. And I said no. But I also was very clear as my situation is a little bit different. And the reason it's different is because these people who are on the program approve what we talk about. They get an outline many days before they're on the program. They get to go through the outline. They get to tell me what they want to talk about. And if there's something that they wish to remain off the record, then they'll tell me and we won't talk about that. But most of the time, I got to be honest, most of the time they look through it and say, yeah, let's do it. So I get approval from these people to we don't talk about what I want to talk about. We can only talk about what the guests want to talk about. And so when these people came to me afterwards, I wasn't blunt with them. I wasn't rude to them or anything, but it's always important for me to know, well, why are you asking me to do this now? and then they'll get into that. And what it ends up being is that they're catching flack from somebody in their family and everything. And maybe there's thinking about bowing to the pressure. And once again, in each case, I said no. And those episodes, and I would never tell you who these people are, ever. But in both these cases, I said no. And I simply told them, you agreed to what we talked about. And if I get into a situation where people start agreeing what they want to talk about, then afterwards they say, no, I didn't want that out there. Well, then we might as well just pack up everything and go home. So as you can tell, and maybe this is kind of how we handle things in the discussion group, we are very firm on our lines. We do not believe, we understand there are slippery slopes out there regarding stuff like this. Like regarding posts, somebody will ask me, well, can I post the GoFundMe link in the discussion group? The answer is always no. It's not because I have anything against that person in particular. It's that I know if I approve one GoFundMe, I have to approve all of them. And if that's the case, that's all the discussion group would end up being is GoFundMe links. Why? Because everybody's always looking for money. Same way with petitions. Everybody's looking for a signature. They want to send to the representative and everything else. I do not have the time to look through all of them and see if they're actually legitimate or not. So the answer is always no. So when it comes to people asking me to take down episodes after the fact, it's a slippery slope. And so I have to say no. Because once again, it's not like that I pulled some quick one on them or anything. They agreed to what we were going to talk about. And I would say that I'm still friends with these people and I think they still respect me. But I had to politely tell them no. Because if I do that, then that opens up every episode to anything. And so we're just not going to do that. The big difference, I think, between my situation, even though I counseled this person and told this person, I don't think that you can bow to what these people want, but I did tell this person, there's a bit of a difference. And the fact is that you covered this disappearance, and even though you asked for their input when they didn't give it, you did it anyway. Now, you didn't do anything wrong. There, there's nothing salacious in there. You didn't, backstab anybody or anything like that. Journalistically, it's good. And that's why I think you should keep it. But I said, you also have to understand that when you do cover disappearances in which you do not get approval from a family, you're always going to be open to this. You're always going to be open to this. And so I told this person that I think you just need to always do a good job, do a respectful job. And when people ask you this, you just say no. That's just the way it has to be. But I just wanted to pass that along to you because I don't know if I ever talked about that before this particular topic. I mean, Lord knows we've ticked some people off on Unfound, but usually it's our persons of interest or people you might call suspects or people who aren't painted in the nicest of lights. They contact me. They contact my guests. Their family contacts me. Their family contacts my guest, and they're all ticked off and everything else. That happens. I wouldn't say often, but it happens. That's totally predictable. And you know that you're going to get into that when you do things the way we do it. But when it comes to actual guests after the fact saying, I love my guests. I appreciate them being on the program, but I can't bow to their every whimsy. They've agreed to be on the program. They agreed to the subject matter. It was their own words. I'm just asking the questions. So under those conditions, I do not feel responsibility to give into something on which they already agreed upon beforehand. So, that's just the way it is. And I think that once I explained that to them, and then I kind of got into more of why they were asking me to do this. So we talked some things out, and then I think they understood where I was coming from. And so I think that, we're still friends, but I've actually had that happen. All right, let's move on to this Friday's disappearance. It's the disappearance of Jennifer Casper Ross. She disappeared on May 5th, 2005. Yes, that is 5/5/05. She disappeared from Reno, Nevada. The guest will be her mother, Carla Brown. And the title of this episode is Barefoot in the Dark. And the reason that is because Jennifer was in Reno. She lived there with her husband and their son. Their marriage was not going well. And one night, she went out by herself to the Peppermill Casino in Reno. She was there. She got there about a little after midnight. And she was there till about 5 a.m. From there, she took a taxi over to where her mother worked, coincidentally at the same taxi company as the taxi she rode in. When she got there, first of all, she didn't pay the driver, but she was looking for her mother. She was in a very agitated state. She was drunk, according to the workers who were there. A little bit incoherent. They were trying to talk to her, ask her questions, and she was just kind of out of it. And then she threw down her high heels that she had on. I think one of the shoes heels was broken. In her bare feet, she ran to the back of this lot. It's a taxi company, so you can imagine cars and everything being there. She ran to the back part of the lot where there was a chain link fence. She climbed up over it and was never seen again. And what we're kind of exploring in this is that, and it's something you should think about as you are, yes, Jennifer Casper Ross. Thank you, Cherie. What you should be thinking about in this disappearance is we do cover a lot of disappearances. They're what we call walk-offs. Meaning, guy wakes up in the morning and his wife's not there, but her car and her phone and her purse and her clothes are there. And he goes, I just don't know. She just walked off. I don't know. And we know how many times we don't believe those stories. Most of the time. Well, here we have a situation where the people who in this building, there were multiple people, and they were friends, co-workers with Jennifer's mother, even though her mother wasn't there that night. There's no reason any of them would lie. They say she was there, she walked off, never to be seen again. Of course, the issue is, despite this, nobody has ever come forward to say they saw or he or she saw Jennifer on the streets of Reno that morning. Now, she lived, her house was, I think, 1.6 miles away from this taxi company. She could have gone home. But the problem is, of course, nobody saw her walking, and there's no proof she ever made it home. Nobody saw her. So we're left to wonder what happened to her after she went over this fence in Reno, Nevada 15 years ago. And I think what we're saying here is that I guess it is possible for people to walk off and nobody see them. Just like we covered a couple weeks ago, Joe Bain. He allegedly walked out of the house, said, he'd be back the next day. You can lock everything up. Never seen again. Now, some people believe he didn't really leave the house, and I guess that's a possibility. But if he did leave, nobody saw him walking either. But the truth is, these workers at this taxi company are probably much more believable than the people under the roof where Joe Bain disappeared. But in both situations, Joe's and Jennifer's never seen again. So I want you to really, really think about that during this interview that I did with her mother, Carla. Yep, Jennifer's Facebook group. Thank you for that, Cherie. So that's what we're going to be doing this Friday. The disappearance of Jennifer Casper Ross, May 5th, 2005 from Reno, Nevada, called Barefoot in the Dark. Her mother will be the guest, Carla. So that's about it for tonight. What'd we do? Talked about my disc golf tournament this past weekend, how I was second and then blew up on the second day. But I have one coming up this weekend. Got Crazy Thunder here. New elevator that I got to use yesterday. The Vanessa Orren poll, Marilane Carter, Ashley Freeman and Laura Bible. We talked about them. Leila Cavett and how suspects in custody. Janelle, not Jolene, Janelle Matthews, and how there's a grand jury that's being brought together. Jesse Ross, the film that's on YouTube now. The Round Table, talked about that. This new project will be starting in September. And gave you a preview what's going to be happening in the next few weeks. I talked about how, yes, it has happened that some guests have asked that their episodes be deleted, but I didn't do that, and I won't do that. Took some excellent questions from the audience. I appreciate those questions. Love the questions. And then lastly, this Friday, Jennifer Casper Ross, the disappearance of Jennifer Casper Ross. That's it, everyone. Thank you for the super chat contributions tonight. Shree, thank you for the moderating of the discussion and posting all those links and making it clear that it's Janelle Matthews and not Jolene Matthews. And you all hear me on Friday. And then some of you, if you are a premium Patreon member, will be seeing me on Sunday evening so we can talk about Jennifer's disappearance. Good night, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me a small piece of your week. Good night.